Playing GTA Online with your own crew can be one of the most rewarding experiences in all of gaming, and much of the game's content is designed around this dynamic to encourage group play. However, the sad reality of it is that many of us don't have the luxury of playing with friends, whether it's due to time zone restrictions, internet issues, or plain simply not knowing anyone else within your friend group who also plays this game. It can be quite challenging to form a reliable 2 or 3 man squad for stuff like the Doomsday Heist or even the Diamond Casino Heist, but not to worry, because even as a solo player, you can enjoy GTA Online to its fullest extent, provided you make the right purchase decisions. And that's why in this video, I'm going to discuss the top 10 things every solo player needs to own in GTA Online. Most of what I've listed here is based around one simple concept: making money, but also having lots of fun, because ultimately that's what matters as a solo player. You don't want to grind one type of content endlessly, because you'll end up feeling bored and miserable. Yes, I'm talking to you Kaio Maxers out there. So you'll notice that most of the items in my video kind of link into each other in a way that feels organic, and they also allow you to progress naturally through the game if you're a new player. Alright, for the first item on my list, let's talk about land vehicles. After all, this game is called Grand Theft Auto, and you definitely need a good set of wheels to get around the city of Los Santos. You can choose a 2-wheeler or a 4-wheeler, but personally, I'd go for cars as they offer more flexibility in terms of handling and protection. I've also got a separate category for armored vehicles coming up, which are designed for more combat situations. But in this particular case, we're narrowing our focus to transportation and sports use, because fast vehicles are what you'll want to use for content like time trials and races. Plus, you'll also need them if you want to shuffle between your various businesses like cargo warehouses, MC Clubhouse businesses, etc. Now, the cheapest vehicle that you can buy that also goes insanely fast is the Bati 801RR Superbike with a top speed of 135 miles an hour. It costs just $15,000, and that's an absolute bargain for how well this thing performs. And while there is certainly a bit of a learning curve with bikes in this game, you can definitely set some impressive lap times with the 801 once you get the feel for it. Now, what I'd recommend for most people is a car, and one of the best racers in this game is the Benefactor Krieger, which costs over $2.8 million. The car is fairly light, it has amazing grip with its all-wheel drive system, and it's really responsive, and it has great steering, so you can pretty much turn on a dime even when you're close to max speed. Another excellent choice for racing and time trials if you want something more muscle related is the Declassi Vigoro ZX. But if you want to apply HSW upgrades, you need the expanded and enhanced edition of GTA 5, which is only available for PlayStation 5 or Xbox Series X and S. Now, if you do have that, you can also look into purchasing a Karin S95, which costs nearly $2 million by default, but if you're a returning player from last-gen consoles and you're migrating your character over, you can actually get it for free, which is pretty cool since this is also a very fast vehicle after applying HSW upgrades. The Pegassi weaponized Ignis is also fantastic, but it is very expensive. And then for last-gen players out there, or those who are on PC, or basically just any player who doesn't have access to HSW vehicles, you can try out cars like the Gratiatali GTO or even the Ocelot Praia, both of which have really good top speed and acceleration. And one of my personal favorites to use is going to be the Ocelot Virtue, which you can actually get for free just by doing all of the first dose and last dose missions for Dax. To make things better here, the Virtue can also be armored up, and you can even install a missile lock-on jammer on it. And if you really want to mess with the griefers in this game, it can also accept a remote control mod, which lets you drive your Virtue from a remote location, keeping your character safe at all times. And it's one of the best value for money cars in the entire game, simply because you can get that base model for free just by completing a few missions and taking a little bit of time to do so. Now, moving on, let's talk about armored vehicles in this game. I put these into a separate category because their purpose is very different from those faster racing cars. For the longest time, myself as well as many others have been recommending one in particular, which is the armored Kuruma, which comes in at just under $700,000. At this point, I do think it's a little bit outdated though, and there are certainly better options available for purchase, but the Kuruma is tried and true, and it is a very distinct old warhorse of a machine, and it can still tank an absurd amount of damage. Now, this is a defensive vehicle, and it's designed primarily around bullets, so don't think you're going to win a PvP match against people with homing missiles or RPGs, because the Kuruma can be turned into a flaming wreck with just one well-placed rocket. However, it's entirely impervious to small arms fire from all directions, which makes it perfect for PvE missions. And there's also another car I'd like to recommend as an alternative here, and that's the Impante Duke of Death. This one, just like the Virtue, is 100% free, and you don't even need to do any missions. You just go into Warstock Cash and Carry, and you can claim your free Duke of Death. While it's slightly more permissive to bullets from the sides compared to the Kuruma, it is far more resilient against homing missiles, RPGs, and explosive sniper rounds, and that's what makes the Duke of Death, I think, a little bit better of a PvP-oriented car, since human players will almost always have some kind of explosive weaponry. And then if you have a bit more cash on hand, you can also opt for the Buffalo STX, which not only is it armored, but it's also capable of accepting Amani Tech upgrades like the missile lock-on jammer. It can tank 12 homing missiles or 4 RPGs before exploding. Plus, it can be equipped with dual front-facing machine guns, as well as slick proximity mines that cause enemy vehicles to spin out as they're pursuing you. So not only is the Buffalo STX more armored against explosive weaponry than the Kuruma or the Duke of Death, but it also has better defense against homing missiles, and it can even unleash its own weaponry on enemies who get a little bit too careless around you. For number 3 on today's list, we need to talk about weapons, as you can't go more than 5 minutes into GTA Online without killing someone. It's just a part of everyday life in Los Santos, and I must admit, it can also be fun if you have the right guns. So here are the only 5 guns you need in the game: a shotgun, a carbine, a sniper, an LMG, as well as a pistol. Explosives, as well as other utility-focused weapons like the Up and Atomizer, for example, are also nice to have, but let's talk about the essentials first. For your first and only shotgun, I recommend the Assault Shotgun, as it's simply the best close-range weapon in this game. For the carbine, you can't go wrong with the Special Carbine. The Mark I version is a godsend for low-level players because there are no level restrictions, and you can even fit it with a 100-round drum mag, which turns this weapon into a discount LMG. And speaking of LMGs, the best one by far is going to be the Combat MG Mark II, which has the highest DPS of any automatic handheld weapon in this game. For long-range one-shot kills, you definitely need a Heavy Sniper Mark II. Once you put explosive rounds into this thing, it'll even delete low-flying aircraft as well as lightly armored vehicles with a few shots. And for the pistol, there are only 2 real choices in my opinion. You can either opt for the AP pistol, or if you want higher capacity at the expense of slightly less DPS, the Tactical SMG. Both can be used from inside a vehicle or on a motorcycle for hit and run attacks. And then finally, we've got the explosive weapons, and these are primarily for dealing with squads of enemies, people hiding behind cover, or even vehicles. My go-to weapon in the game is the good old RPG, but I also recommend the grenade launcher because you can angle yourself to stay in cover as well as bounce grenades through passages or even alleyways to clear out campers, and it's super effective at that. And we've already covered land vehicles, so next let's talk about aerial vehicles. Normally, I'd recommend something like the Buzzard or the Sparrow for missions because it's so fast and they can be spawned anywhere, and they also bring a ton of offensive capability. But there's another item on this list that comes with its own helicopter upgrade, which is why I'm using this slot to talk about the undisputed king of aerial combat in modern GTA Online, and that is the Mammoth F-160 Raiju. This is basically an F-35 fighter jet, and it's also the fastest aircraft in the game. On top of its excellent performance, the Raiju also brings several quality of life features to the table, like stealth, which gives you a massive advantage against griefers. It also has a VTOL mode, so you can take off and land practically anywhere, and that gives you a ton of flexibility when it comes to mission planning. And overall, I just love using the Raiju for hangar cargo source missions, and it's also a beast in free mode PvP with its explosive autocannons as well as homing missiles. With weapons and vehicles out of the way, now let's talk about businesses. The Agency is one of the best businesses for solo grinders out there, and it can be had for as little as $2 million if you go with a Little Seoul location. And in exchange for your $2 million, you get access to a wide variety of content that includes both active as well as passive income. First, you have the Office Safe, which accumulates cash whenever you do security missions. The maximum cap for the safe is $20,000 per 48 minutes, or 1 in-game day, which you get after completing 201 contracts. The security contracts themselves pay anywhere from $31,000 per contract on the low end to over $70,000 for Specialist Plus difficulty, and a lot of these can be done in less than 5 minutes with ease. Then you'll have payphone hits. Before the patch, these payphone hits would pay up to $85,000 on a 48-minute cooldown, but now they pay $45,000 on a 10-minute cooldown. And overall, I'd say payphone hits are now better for grinders, but worse for regular players. And then finally, we've got the main course, which is the VIP contract, aka the Dr. Dre contract, which pays $1 million for about an hour and a half of work. At first, it might take you close to 2 hours, but once you memorize all the locations and get used to running the missions and you just come up with an efficient route to get between all these places, it shouldn't take you more than 90 minutes to complete from there on out. Now, don't forget that your agency also has a Mark II weapons workshop as well as an armory, in addition to a vehicle workshop for Amani Tech upgrades, which makes the agency even more lucrative as a solo player. The Acid Lab is going to be up next year, and this, in my opinion, is one of the most solo-friendly businesses in the entire game, if not the most solo-friendly business, even more so than the agency. It only requires one delivery vehicle, the Manchez Scout dirt bike, which you can carry in the back of your Brigade 6x6, and the Brigade 6x6 can be unlocked for free just by doing the 6 first dose missions. But before you begin production in your Acid Lab, I highly recommend doing all 10 Fooligan missions to start so you can upgrade your lab, because without the upgrades, this is actually kind of just a mediocre business, because the production times as well as the payouts for your time spent aren't going to be that great. But once you equip the Acid Lab upgrade, which is practically free since you get paid for the Fooligan missions and apply that money to the Acid Lab upgrade, you can easily earn anywhere from $90,000 to $100,000 an hour. hour, and with the public lobby high demand bonus, you'll get an additional 2.5% for every player in the lobby when you sell. So as long as you don't get griefed, you can make up to $150,000 per hour in a pack lobby, more than any other passive income source in the game. But wait, it gets even better. If you name your asset product, you get a further 5% boost to your income when you sell. And don't forget that you also get the Ocelot Virtue Supercar by doing the 6 Lastos missions. Now let's talk about another excellent solo-friendly business, the Auto Shop. This one is particularly good if you like motor racing and the tinkering side of vehicles with GTA Online. I know a lot of car nerds play these games, and as a new player, you might need to hit a certain level or do some races before you unlock the customization options you actually want to apply on your vehicles. But if you own an auto shop, you automatically remove all of these restrictions, and all your vehicles are also eligible to install anything that you want just because you own an auto shop. The auto shop only gets better as you own more cars too, because there's a 10% discount applied to every single modification you apply as long as you do it inside of your auto shop. Plus, you can make a decent chunk of money through auto shop contracts as well as exotic exports, in addition to the client jobs and delivery vehicles you get that come into your auto shop. This next one is both a vehicle as well as a business because it unlocks what is to this day the most time-efficient way of making money in GTA Online. I'm of course talking about the Kasatka submarine, which is the best $2.2 million you will ever spend in this game. And remember when I was talking about air vehicles earlier? Well, through the Kasatka's Moonpool upgrade, you can have your very own Sparrow helicopter ready to deploy at all times. And you can deploy it right next to you by requesting it from the interaction menu, provided you return it to the submarine first, which you should do right after landing. With the Kasatka, heist prepping, especially for Cayo Perico, turns into an absolute cakewalk because not only is this thing super fast and nimble, but it can also delete entire squads of enemies from the air with its barrage of missiles, or even a minigun, should you choose to install that in place of the missiles. However, be warned that this helicopter does have the structural rigidity of a wet paper bag, so the mere act of landing too harshly may send you into a fireball. But as long as you utilize its speed and agility the right way, you should be able to stay out of harm's way while dishing out loads of damage to enemies. The next business we need to talk about is the CEO office, which starts at $1 million for the Mazebank West location, and I'm recommending this one because you get access to special cargo warehouses as well as the vehicle warehouse when you're a CEO. When it comes to special cargo, ideally you want to buy large warehouses as these can store many more crates than you can with a small or medium-sized warehouse, and you also get a much higher payout on your sell missions. Also, make sure that your warehouses are as close to each other as possible to make sourcing a lot more streamlined. Now here's a map of all the large warehouses in the game, and you'll notice that numbers 2, 3, 6, and 7 are all lined up next to each other, which means that you'll waste a lot less time moving between these warehouses. In addition to special cargo, you can also use your CEO office to export mixed goods for $50,000 every 48 minutes, do vehicle cargo work, and although both of these don't pay nearly as much as special cargo, they're definitely worth implementing into your daily grind as a solo player. And then for the final item on my list, I've got the nightclub here, which sits alongside the acid lab as one of the best sources of passive income in the entire game. With the nightclub, you earn money passively in your office safe, as long as you keep your nightclub popularity up, which actually should be quite easy with the bouncer missions, where basically with these missions you remove rowdy patrons from your nightclub, but the main money maker is going to be your nightclub warehouse management, which lets you assign technicians to 5 different businesses. These include the Coca-Cola lockup, Counterfeit Cash Factory, the Math Lab, warehouses, etc. If you don't already own a warehouse or even MC businesses, I would honestly hold off on the nightclub because it won't make you as much cash. But once you have these businesses, you can simply assign technicians who will source and launder goods for you through the warehouse in the nightclub basement, and this is entirely passive, by the way. You don't have to do any source missions yourself. Once your stock is full, all you need to do is a sell mission, and with a full warehouse, you'll use the Pounder Custom, which is a massive semi-truck, but it's still just one vehicle, and thus very solo-friendly once again. And there you have it. My top 10 must-have purchases for solo players here in GTA Online. I'd love to know in the comments, which one of these do you think is going to be the most important? And are there any items that you want to add to your personal list or any items you think I missed? Let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to drop a like on this video if you found it helpful as a solo player. Make sure to subscribe so I can bring you more educational content like this in the future. And if you want to go even further to support me, you can check me out over on twitch.tv/HazardousHDTV for daily GTA Online live streams. As always, I'll catch you guys in the next GTA Online video. Adios, amigos.